Quad City Bay Area, thank you for a $5 super chat. Is there a real reason for remote ID? Have there been accidents or something? I'll say this. The purported motivation for remote ID, which is to improve the safety and security and privacy of the skies or whatever the hell they say it is not really served by the rule that was passed, as is often the case, not always, but as is often the case with regulations and stuff like this. The regulation pushes the bounds of privacy back. It intrudes, shall we say, on people's privacy, and is relatively easy to circumvent by bad actors. And so then you could ask the question, who is actually going to be served by this? And the answer to that is some people. Because here's the thing. You see this argument in other areas of regulation that are very, very hot button topics that I'm not going to get into, and I'd rather you didn't get into them. But people say the fact that a bad actor could easily circumvent this rule means that the rule is pointless. The rule only applies to people who were going to be good actors to begin with, and therefore it's pointless. That argument is dumb, because it presumes that each person is either a good actor forever or a willful bad actor. And the truth is, most people who are bad actors didn't wake up that morning as a bad actor. They became a bad actor through bad judgment or by accident. So it's like saying, it would be like if you said, there's no point in having license plates on cars because they only catch criminals anyway. And, you know, people who are going to rob banks will just take their people who are going to street race and rob banks will just take the license plates off the cars. So license plates they're pointless. Well, that's dumb. Lots of people break the law with license plates on their cars. And by the same token, lots of people will violate no-fly zones, let's say, and get caught because they had remote ID on their drone. That will happen. We already know that people have... Remember the time when somebody crashed their drone at McCarran Airport in Vegas and they caught the person because their FAA number was written on the drone? So some people will break the rules and get caught because remote ID exists. But I don't think that's the same as saying that it fully serves the motivation that it's supposed to serve. And I certainly don't think it's the most effective balance between the goal of preventing bad actors and letting people exercise their freedoms responsibly. So that's my take on that. Anyway. I'm not pro or anti anything, Zipper Lips. I just think that your arguments have to make sense. Your arguments have to make sense. And I think the argument that prohibition is pointless because bad actors will always overcome prohibition, that's dumb. That's dumb. That's just not true. It's not true. Like you could look at the opiate epidemic that's going on in the United States. What triggered the opiate epidemic? It was mass prescription of prescription opiates, among other things, I'm sure. So what that tells us is that prohibition of drugs meant that fewer people were doing it. And then when they got access to the drugs legally, then they became bad actors. In the context of this argument, someone who is performing an action that's prohibited by the law is the quote-unquote bad actor. I'm not trying to stigmatize addicts as bad people or bad, but so my point is that prohibition does work to some degree. That doesn't mean that prohibition is always right and that it strikes the right balance. But the simple argument that because prohibition can be circumvented, therefore it's pointless, that's a dumb argument, and you're dumb if you make it. I don't think you've thought about it if you're making that argument. Okay. To put it back with remote ID, some people will fly drones without remote ID on them. The worst kind of people who want to commit the worst kind of crimes will definitely not have remote ID. But some people will get caught doing other types of things because of remote ID. So then, does it work? Yeah, anyway. What about flying on your property? Doesn't matter. If you're in the national airspace, the FAA feels that they have jurisdiction over you. If you are on you don't have unrestricted rights to the airspace above your property. You have some right to it, but that right, according to the FAA, does not give you the right to fly. Sub 250 gram does not need remote ID.